So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to dive into setting up our folders and talking about, I guess you could say, the folders and the files. I've got InDesign open, and it's InDesign CS6. Once again, if you have CS5 or 5.5, you can do this as long as you have the tools installed, the panels installed. Now, if we are going to create, let's say, our first app, we're going to go through this process. In InDesign, we create what's called a folio. And if you look on the right over here, you're going to see folio overlays and folio builder. It's sort of like, and I already said this a couple times, but it's sort of like your testing app. It will eventually become an app. But as a folio, it's a bunch of InDesign files and content. Let me go out to my desktop, and I've got the lessons folder rather, and you can see that in the lessons folder, there's a DPS end folder here, and then there's a folder with your folio. Now, when you go to create your first app, what you really want to do is you kind of want to work like you do in print. Keep everything together, if you can help it. Now, if you want to create InDesign files and link to different content like images and stuff like that that's around your hard drive, you can do that. It doesn't all have to be in the same folder. It just keeps it neater and organized. When you go to build the app, it's going to kind of grab everything and bring it into the app when you're done. What I usually do is I create a folder, and I just called it My Folio. This is going to become my app, and put it on your hard drive somewhere. And we're going to try not to move it around because InDesign needs to know where this thing is, just like any files you work on. Within that folder, what we're going to do is we're going to organize our files based on articles or different content. When we first started talking about this with the app, we talked about the different articles, which were all vertical, and we had separate InDesign files. As a matter of fact, let me show you again what I was talking about. So I'll go back out and give you an idea. In my app, I've got these InDesign files, and each one of these vertical orientation files here, these vertical oriented files, is an InDesign file. So you can see Playground right there. And what you do is you usually want to create a different folder for each article, it's called, each InDesign file, just to keep things organized. So if I come over here, you're going to see this cover folder. So you usually create a folder called cover or something like that. The name, just keep it consistent and keep it simple. Try not to put spaces and names and things like that, okay? If you look at the InDesign file right here, I'm just going to open that up and take a look at it. And of course, I'm missing files. That's totally fine. You can fix those. There's my page. Looks exactly like it does on the iPad. You can see right there. So this is my first InDesign file. Now, if I want to go to another article, move over, I'll have another folder in there. And maybe this is my table of contents is next, okay? So I want my table of contents. You're going to see that in this folder, I have two InDesign files. Kind of interesting. This is something that's going to bring us to a point here, which is kind of interesting as well. I'm going to go back over to the iPad here, and we're going to take a look at the app. Let me do this. You'll notice that the iPad has two orientations, right? I know it's kind of stupid to say. But as you take an app and you change orientations of the iPad itself, you're going to see what happens here to the design. Design's going to change. In most apps, or a lot of apps, what we're going to do is to make it so that it looks good in both orientations, we're not just going to create one InDesign file for a single article like this. Okay, we're going to create two InDesign files. This is the way we used to do it anyway. One for a horizontal orientation and one for a vertical orientation. Now, if you want to, what you can do is you can create an app, like look at this process journal one right over here. You can see it. Let me click on that one. You can make it to where you lock orientation. No matter how you change or move the iPad, it's always going to stay in one orientation. That only requires a single InDesign file or a single set of InDesign files. So, but it can be kind of annoying. I mean, you got to figure out what you're doing with your app. That's the idea. So if I take a look, let me go back out to the folders. If I look in the folder here, you're going to see that, okay, in this table of contents folder, I've got an InDesign file called whatever, TOC, the naming, just keep it simple, no spaces. One with an _H and one with an _V. Now forget about this thing right here. Don't worry about that. In InDesign CS5, InDesign CS 5.5, this is how we pretty much have to set up our files if we want a dual orientation app. You want it to show in two different orientations. When you go to build the app, you tell it, let's do two, or when you go to create it rather, let's do two orientations or just lock it to one, okay? If you decide to do two, you're going to create one. Let me open this up. One with an _H and one with an _V in InDesign CS5 and InDesign CS 5.5. Here, I'm going to open this one up. Of course, it's missing images, whatever. And zoom out. And you can see, there's my horizontal orientation. If I go back out to that folder again, and I look at the vertical orientation, you're going to see it's pretty much just a copy of the InDesign file, course it's missing images. You can always fix those, you guys. You're going to see it's got a vertical orientation. It's just a vertical design of this same content. So what we do is we say, hey, InDesign, when we go to build this thing, here are two files with the same name. One has an _V, one's got an _H, and it just knows, oh, okay, _V is going to be for the vertical orientation, and H is for horizontal. So this is the way we can do it. This is the way we typically will do it. It's annoying. Don't get me wrong. It's annoying. And you got to create 2 versions of most files if you want to do that. Now, if you're in InDesign CS6, and this is only for CS6 users, you're going to see that some of these folders, I actually only have one InDesign file with no V and no H. Now, what's up with that? Well, in InDesign CS6, what you can do is you can use some of the new features to make it a little bit easier on yourself. For instance, if you open up the cover file, if I open the cover file here and zoom out, you'll see that you can include the different orientations in a single file. If I go over to the Pages panel, we can use what are called alternate layouts to do this. Liquid rules, alternate layouts, all these new things in InDesign CS6 to make it so that we can do this. So if I go under layout, you'll see create alternate layout. That allows you to take existing content like this layout right here, this page, and say, all right, let's flip it. Let's change orientation. It's going to copy all the content, and it's going to move it all and make sure it looks pretty good after we set a few things up. It's also going to allow you to do things like link text frames or make sure that if text changes in one orientation, it'll change in the other. This is really pretty cool. Basically means that we create all the files or all the pages for one orientation, and then we create the other orientation, letting InDesign do it for us. So if I go back out to the folder and take a look at the main article here and open this up, double click, of course it's missing all the images, whatever, and I zoom way out, you're going to see that, okay, well, here's our horizontal and there's our vertical. So there's 2 different orientations, and this is just how InDesign sticks it all in the same file. Hopefully that makes sense. When you then take the InDesign file and you say, let's use this in my app, it's going to immediately look over here and say, oh, well, this is for horizontal and this is for vertical. Cool. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. Those of you in InDesign CS5 and CS5.5 will not be able to get these files, will not be able to work with these, basically. So the way you got to do it, like I said, is create a version of the file, okay, with different _H and _V in the naming. Do what you want. I will name the folders according to whatever name I want. No spaces, keep it simple. But I will usually put an _article just to know that this is an article. Article is a vertical, thing we're going to scroll over to. Cover's got the cover, TOC. You can make an ad folder if you have an advertisement in one of these. You can make multiple article folders. You make as many as you need for as far over as you're going to scroll horizontally. Now you will notice this HTML resources folder. This is a folder where you can put things like web page content or stuff that you want to link to, like a PDF. If you want to link to a PDF by tapping. So for instance, if I go back out to my app here, you'll see right there. This is the one we're going to build. Let me get into it, and I'll scroll over. You'll see if I go to one of the pages, I have a link right here to a PDF. If I tap on that, it's going to open the PDF directly within the viewer here or within the device. That PDF is actually living, and I just tried to click on it. Wow. That PDF is living in this HTML resources folder. It's a folder that you don't have to have necessarily. It's just there if you have shared content, stuff you want to use in different InDesign files or your different articles they're called. So it's not necessary. You don't have to have it. And then this zip folder, or zip file rather, we'll talk about that. This is how you get it up and make it and put it in the app, basically. Don't worry about that right now. So we're trying to organize things, keep it simple, naming conventions. We're making as many folders as we need for each vertical article. So like I said, let me get rid of this and then go back. Whoops, it's going to go back to the, sorry. This is the problem with sometimes. Okay, so sorry. So each vertical is probably going to be a separate folder, probably going to be a separate InDesign file, or 2 InDesign files, like I said earlier, vertical, horizontal, depending on how you want to build it. Keep it simple. You don't have to start with all your InDesign files to begin with. You can start with one if you want to start building the app, or you can do them all and start working and do what you need to do. But this is the main folder structure that we need, okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to take an InDesign file, and I'm going to show you how to use the CS6 functionality to where we change orientation. So for instance, if I go into one of these, and hopefully they won't all be missing, how to have, let's say, horizontal set up first. How do we have it use alternate layouts and liquid rules to create the vertical version as well? So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about file size, page size, dimensions, all the things we need to do to get this to work.